Kenya, thousands of protesters have taken to the streets of Nairobi and other cities to mark a grim first anniversary of a youth-led uprising against high taxes, poor economic conditions, and the rule of President William Ruto that was met by massive police violence last year.
For me, today means that revolution is coming to Kenya, and I pray that this is a day that will change everything, that Ruto will go today.
In response to this week's peaceful protests, Kenyan police blocked major roads leading to Nairobi's central business district and draped government buildings with razor wire. The brutal crackdown on protests a year ago killed at least 60 people, with hundreds more injured.
So the Massachusetts National Guard is training the Kenyan police force so that they could have a militarized police force like the United States. And now it makes sense why police brutality is at an all-time high in Kenya. Because apparently this program between Massachusetts and the Kenyatta police force has been in works for 10 years, since 2015 until now, where they're helping the Kenyan police militarize so that they can defend their people. But you know what that means. Right now in Kenya, the police are using tear gas and rubber bullets at close range on protesters. I wonder where they learned that from. And the events that led to this protest was the fact that last year, during the anti-police and anti-government protests that were happening, 60 people were murdered at the hands of the police. And people were marking the event this year and also demanding an end to police brutality, police corruption, and government corruption. And wouldn't you know it, they just showed with more force, and now 16 people have been murdered within the last few days. That the protests have been going on, but the youth and the people of Kenya are not backing down. You can take a look at these videos. So not only did the United States militarize their own police, they're trying to militarize other police forces, because this is a way that they get to use other countries now instead of them being the police force of the world. If y'all didn't pay attention last year when the gang information was coming out of Haiti and they were saying that the country was being overtaken by cannibals and, gang members, which was not true, by the way. Instead of the United States police force stepping in, they had the Kenyan police force step in to do their bidding for them. So they are trying to militarize African countries so that they can start deploying those African countries in other places to be able to use them. And the Kenyan corrupt government that's currently in place is letting it happen. The youth is sick of the corruption where they can get educated, but they can't get a job because the level of corruption is so bad. The police are literally killing people in their custodies and then saying, oh, it was suicide. And then an autopsy is performed and you see that they were badly beaten to death, honestly. Cost of living in Kenya has gotten so high. In certain areas, people can't afford to live there.
Beautiful scene. Beautiful scene. Beautiful things managed to
Parliament is completely barricaded. A lot of police out here, and the surrounding streets are empty. A lot of them trying to make sure that none of the protesters gets this far on the first anniversary of the killings we saw on the street. Many of them, all of them in fact, unarmed protesters who pose no threat to the police, but we saw police shoot them dead.
So last year, on June 25th, where 60 people in Kenya were unalived by the Kenyan government, where they protested a lot of things, such as police brutality, government corruption, and a potential increase in taxes, regarding what Kenyan government officials say is to try to repay back their IMF loans which carry a high interest rate, covering from wide ranges of 3% to 14.5%. Approximately, some estimates show that 8 people and as much as 16 people were unalived in protest yesterday, and as much as 450 people that got severely harmed in the protest in the anniversary of this as well. And on top of this, there is a lot more fuel to the fire, for lack of a better term, regarding a young activist as well that got unalived by police. And you know where I stand with this. I am in full solidarity with the people of Kenya because of the police brutality and an increase potentially happening just because they need to pay back an IMF loan. And I think you should as well be in solidarity with the Kenyan people.
No, what are you doing? Why would you do that? And he's laughing. He just threw tear gas in a crowded alley and then laughed at it. Nairobi feels like a war zone right now, with police everywhere in riot gear, tear gas, flashbangs, and claims of security services using live rounds. Police trying to disperse protesters, some of the protesters throwing rocks back at police. It's a dramatic scene that could have been avoided if police let the protesters march in peace. Look at this, look at this, look at this. They're trying to beat her up. They're threatening her. These are prisons officers who are not trained in crowd control, and they are being unreasonably violent. Here we see them again. He's whipping the protesters right now.
We are demonstrating peacefully. We are protesting against police brutality. As you can see, we have nothing. I only have my phone. We all have only our phones. We are peaceful. Our hands are up, but we have been cornered, and we are afraid for our lives.
We don't need Ruto as our president. Ruto is a corrupt leader, and we don't need him in Kenya. As you say, Ruto must go.
Ruto must go.
Officers, advance.
I'm here today to remember my fellow comrades who lost their lives at these streets. But the police who killed the Gen Zs last year, they haven't done anything about those police officers.
As a foreigner, you shouldn't be participating in protests in the first place, because you can literally get your ass deported for doing shit like that. Like, you're not a Kenyan, so you can't be out there protesting. That's not how. Not if you want to live here.
Cheki wameifuata nyuma. Cheki jiwe. Cheki. Kuna mse. Wameifuata.
Guys, you know, tear gas is nice for life. I am a patriot. Napigwa tu tear gas huku. The bombs are coming in. Woo! Oh my God, tear gas. Ah!
This is the last thing I want to say before I die tomorrow. They told us, go to school. Education is the key, they said. We sat in classes with no windows. We studied in torn uniform on empty stomachs. We believed them. Our parents believed them too. They gave everything. Sold cows, missed meals, broke their back just to see us wear that gown. And years later, here I am, graduated, jobless, hopeless. Turns out, the key only opens doors if your father knows someone. If your uncle is a big man, if your name already matters. And those of us without names, we stay outside, knocking, forgotten. Then they say, start a business. But even small dreams are not safe here. Kanjos will come, or even the goons they send. They won't just destroy your stall. They will scatter your future like trash. So, if I die tomorrow, maybe my parents will be given 2 million. Maybe that is more than I could ever give them alive. So, Shoot me close range. Don't leave me like others, breathing but broken. Because in this country, we were told to dream, but never warned this would kill us. This country is not safe, not for people like us.
We're peaceful, these protesters cry out to passing police cars as they lead an injured man away in Nairobi. That doesn't stop an officer firing a tear gas canister at the group. The injured were taken away by ambulance and by motorbike too. At least 16 were killed at anti-government protests across Kenya, with 400 injured, say doctors and human rights groups, and at least 8 treated for gunshot wounds. Most of the dead, according to Amnesty Kenya, were killed by police. Thousands had taken to the streets to mark the anniversary of the anti-tax protests of 2024, which saw Parliament stormed, 64 killed, and dozens reportedly abducted. What began last year as a cry against the cost of living has morphed into horror over the brutality meted out in response.
Enough! The blood that we have shed is enough! There is no blood left in our flag anymore! We are not scared to say it. We will say it boldly. We will say it courageously. Police brutality must end and Ruto must go.
Many of the protesters want President William Ruto to go. He had initially offered some concessions after last year's demonstrations, but his is a government defiant, with authorities ordering a media blackout, demanding that TV stations stop covering the protests.
We have been switched off from mainstream, but you can catch us live from YouTube.
They moved across to social media instead. These are being called the Gen Z protests, and authorities can't contain them online, cracking down offline instead. Justice for Albert Ojwang, this placard reads. The killing of the 31-year-old teacher and blogger earlier this month sparked this latest round of protests. He'd been accused of defaming Kenya's deputy police chief, and while police initially said his injuries were self-inflicted, 3 officers and 3 civilians have since been charged with his murder. His grief-stricken father is looking for answers.
Maswali yangu bado yako pale pale.
I still have the same questions that I asked when he was being arrested. What are the charges against my son? Who is the complainant that caused my son to be taken from my home to Nairobi? What is the weighty mistake that caused my son to be taken from home and ultimately killed?
Then on June the 17th, an AP photographer caught the moment an unarmed street vendor, Boniface Kariuki, was approached by police. Under warning, these images are deeply distressing. You see an officer shooting him point blank in the temple. Mr. Kariuki is currently on life support. The officers are arraigned in court and under investigation. On the same day as Mr. Kariuki's shooting, Reuters filmed men chasing protesters with whips and sticks, later seen standing near a police car.
Motorcycle riders have been given money and called from, I'm not sure where, to come and beat protesters who have their right to protest.
This Tuesday, the US Embassy and other diplomatic missions released a joint statement urging police to abide by a court ruling banning them from using plainclothes officers in unmarked vehicles. It spoke too of concerns over, quote, hired goons, referring to armed gangs that had been attacking protesters.
The goons were being escorted by police as they terrorized protesters.
Kenya's police spokesperson and the Nairobi County Governor both deny accusations of affiliations with these groups.
We are peaceful! We are peaceful!
A state-funded rights group has reported the abductions of more than 80 government critics since June 2024, something President William Ruto first said was fake news and then promised to crack down on. The words of Kenya's Interior Minister this morning, describing the deadly protests as terrorism disguised as dissent, could spell further repression as the country smarts from yet more violence. Joining me now from Nairobi is Zaina Kombo, a lawyer who works for Amnesty International. Zaina, thank you for joining us. We know that several people have been killed. Can you give us a sense of what's been going on the ground?
So the protests yesterday turned violent, and as of last night, we have about 16 fatalities and over 400 injuries recorded as of last night. There were also allegations of sexual assault of women.
And do you have evidence that this violence is being meted out by police?
Yes, in some instances, citizens have been recording and documenting most of these cases. And the gunshot wounds are there. There are photos and some videos showing the brutality meted upon citizens, either those who are protesting and some others have been confirmed to be stray bullets. But the injuries and the fatalities, the number of shed have been verified and confirmed.
Early this month, armed attackers were filmed assaulting some of the protesters in plain clothes. Do we know who these people are?
We do not have actual information as to whether they are former police officers or whether they are like the relationship they have. But we know they are young people who are potentially jobless and they were just misused by those who hired them to come and attack other Kenyans who are fighting for good governance in this country.
And what has been the government's response to all of this?
So definitely the government has denied involvement and said that they have distanced themselves from the allegations of hiring goons, and they vowed to protect property and lives. But videos and other documentary evidence show that they were in the company of police officers. So we continue to monitor the situation.
William Ruto's government has been accused of democratic backsliding. We saw that they imposed a media blackout on TV news stations. Have you been seeing a lot of this kind of thing of late?
Recently, there has been a lot of suppression of dissent. And we have also seen a blatant disregard of court orders, because there was a court order that issued conservatory orders against the shutting down of media houses. But we saw that being violated by the order that the media stations should stop live coverage.
How much is the government cracking down on journalists and civil society?
Every time there's a protest, potentially journalists are targeted, civil society or the human rights defenders are also quite targeted.
How common are those abductions now?
It's been quite common, and we suspect that this is part of the tool of suppression against any form of dissent, and especially those who are tech savvy and digitally savvy. So if you post something, it's now being used as a tool of intimidation for people not to express themselves, for people not to say, to share their frustrations with the world.
I also wanted to ask you about the killing of blogger Albert Ojwang, which was initially denied by the police. Subsequently, 3 of them were arrested and charged with his murder alongside 3 civilians. I mean, it's a really shocking case. What can you tell us about where that stands and how people are feeling about it?
So the case began, the arrest began like any other arrest, where, the person was extracted from their home. And at that time, the father thought this was a normal arrest. And if there was anything wrong that the son had done, then he would definitely find him the following day, and he would be arraigned in court. But it turned out to be something else. They went all the way, I think it was about 400 kilometers, drove 400 kilometers away only for him to be found dead the following day. And this has, caused a lot of anxiety and lack of trust. We already had a trust deficit, but this deeply entrenched the trust deficit between citizens and security officials, because then it means that even when you're arrested, the people who are meant to give you protection in a cell could as well just turn wild and do something like that.
Zaina Kombo, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you so much.
1 year on since giving a long list of promises following the deadly Gen Z-led protests, only a handful have been met by President William Ruto's administration, raising questions as to the commitment to the pledges. Families who lost more than 60 loved ones are still seeking justice as more advisors are onboarded to government against promises to the contrary. Emmanuel To now re-looks at the promises.
He cut a lonely and forlorn image as he made a solitary walk to the live microphones at the State House, Nairobi.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
To a tense nation, President Ruto made pledges including promising justice to the families of the more than 60 people killed and hundreds of others injured during the protests.
The government of Kenya will support all those who've lost their lives and those who've been injured.
1 year on, the government has nothing to show for the promise. The families gutted by their losses are still waiting for justice. Even so, the promise to return all those abducted was never kept.
All the people who disappeared or who are abducted in what you said, all of them have been brought back to their families and to their homes.
Records from the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights say at least 9 people are still missing to date after the demos. In the same address to the nation, the head of state also laid down some of the measures to curb government spending and reduce wastage. Among them,
the number of advisors in government shall be reduced by 50% within the public service with immediate effect.
However, instead of reducing the advisors by 50%, the number has since risen to about 300%, with allies of the president, including those of ODM leader Raila Odinga, increasing the number to about 20.
Why the youth them hungry? Why the girl them steal herself in money? The people want world government, nothing else makes sense. Save ghetto youth, everybody get help. World government, nothing else makes sense. Save ghetto youth.
There was a promise to stop public contributions by state officers.
No state officer or public servant shall participate in public contributions or haram fees going forward. Hatupatii congregation hii, tunampatia Mungu. Mimi mwenyewe nitatoa milioni 20 kwanza.
1 year on, the government, it seems, is unable to keep its word. The contributions have continued unperturbed and even went a notch higher with the introduction of the cash-flowing economic empowerment program.
Rais amenituma na shilingi milioni 3.
The pledge to reduce unnecessary spending like renovating government facilities was also not kept.
And the budget for renovations across government reduced by 50%.
State House, which has become a perennial construction site since September 2022, has been allocated an extra 680 million shillings in the financial year beginning in the next 1 week. The government has, however, kept some of its promises.
47 state corporations with overlapping and duplicating functions will be dissolved.
Early in January, Cabinet approved the merging of 42 parastatals into 20, while 9 were dissolved in a bid to cut cost and reduce overlapping of roles. Emmanuel To, Citizen.
All sovereign powers belongs to the people of Kenya and shall be, underline the wording shall. Mandatory. Be exercised only in accordance with this constitution. The people may, optional, may, optional. That is it, Your Honor. No, complete it, may exercise their sovereignty power either directly or through their democratically elected. So the wording, the conjunction may, I apply one.
Kamula kama narusha mawe.